This is Real You. You're watching The Shift Asia. In 2023, 𝗦𝗂𝗀𝗃𝗃, co-founder and CEO of 𝗪𝗪𝗃, was appointed as the national expert for the World Summit Awards, or WSA. WSA is a global competition recognizing digital innovations that positively impact society. It connects startups, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders across 182 UN member states, promoting digital solutions that address local challenges and advance the UN SDGs. So every year, upwards of 900 nominations are submitted by national experts from around the world, and only 5 global winners from 8 categories are selected by a global jury. So on an annual basis, therefore, there are only 40 global winners, 5 winners for each of the 8 categories. The national nominee for the Culture and Heritage category in 2023 was Asia Mobiliti, and the company designs and engineers a data platform to power intelligent urban mobility for Southeast Asia. I took this off from your website. With a data-driven approach, their platform connects fleet operators, transport providers, transit authorities, and end users with a seamless and integrated experience through a suite of products and services, including IoT and fleet management services, mobility as a service technologies, on-demand transit solutions, and mobility data services. And we'll go into that a little deeper. I'm here with Ramachandran Muniandy. Ram, thanks for being here. I went through a whole slew of things. You can laymanize it for me, right? I guess let's go back to the beginning, right? When you first started the company, what was the problem? It's always that problem you tried to solve when you started. What was the story then?
Yeah, thank you, Frida, for having me on your show. The problem that caused the existence of the founding of the company in 2018, this is coming up to 6.5 years, 7 years now, was basically me and my co-founder Premesh. Both of us are quite passionate about technology and how we can use technology to bring about public impact. Right. And so one big area of interest has been transport. Yeah. So in that year, both of us were looking for a new season, a new adventure, and both of us saw that we could be great co-founders, right? And so we started looking at the transport sector, the public transport sector in particular, wanting to answer the question, where is my bus?
Okay.
Very simple question. Where is my bus? Yes. Because we realized that loads of people are still struggling with that. Right?
See, I've stopped looking for my bus.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, right? Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So we decided we could very easily solve the problem using technology and data, not by running a new bus service, but helping existing bus operators, providing them with a digital solution, right? So that we can plug the gap between passenger expectations and transport operators' capabilities, right? They are not digital companies, and that is why transport companies struggle with this, right? So we thought we'll fill in that gap, right? And build a bus tech solution.
Okay.
Very quickly we did that. We built a prototype, got that going, got our first client within the first year. And then we realized, okay, this is good, this is easy to do, which therein lies a problem, right? It's too easy to solve, right? So we realized, okay, good, this is going to help the bus operators, but it doesn't move the needle for the city.
Okay.
Right? It helps passengers who have already committed to using buses find their buses.
Right.
But you know what about the 90% of everybody else who has said, look, I have given up on public transport and I'm in my car, right? So what if you can tell me where is my bus? I am driving already, right? Okay. I have already committed to doing that. Okay. And I'm stuck in traffic and I need to pay for parking and I do all of that. Yeah. Right? So it's not moving the needle for the city. Then we decided, okay, look, for us to have massive public impact or maximum public impact is we needed to be multimodal in nature, not just bus, right? Because really any transport ecosystem in a city is multimodal. Okay. It's not dominated by one mode of transport. There is a mixture of many different modes of transport that makes mobility work in a city. Right. And that combination is very city-specific though, right? Yeah. If you go to KL, if you go to Penang, in Penang, for example, there is no rail yet. It's coming up, there's no rail yet. In KL, there's loads of rail, right? There's a lot of the metro transit systems. And so we decided we had to be a multimodal mobility technology company. So we went very quickly from a bus tech company to mobility as a service, which we discovered back then that is the right term to use for multimodal mobility. Right. So back then, very few people knew of the term. I think many people are still find that term a bit of a foreign term, MaaS, mobility as a service. But what it means is being able to integrate and aggregate all modes of transport in the city, that it becomes rather than a mode of choice, it becomes just pure mobility as a service. It's like a Netflix model, right?
Okay.
I don't need to pick a movie to watch. I just want to watch something and it's there for me to choose. Right?
Okay.
So that's what it is, and that's how it started.
See, you explain it in Netflix, I understand.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just thinking now the podcast title should be "Where is my bus?" Right? And that's the thing. Now, so you talk a couple of mobility service, and you build your approach upon three main pillars, which is the IoT and machine learning, mobility as a service, you explain a bit, and transit technology. So maybe the others which you haven't explained, you could explain a little bit.
Yeah. So this experience of being able to say, look, on a single digital platform or an interface, the passenger, the end user in a city has got access to journey planning across all modes, being able to customize how do I get from point A to point B, and being able to choose and then pay seamlessly, right?
Okay.
That is what it means for a full-fledged,
as frictionless
integrated,
as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this is something that is already possible in some cities in the developed first world, right? If you go to parts of Europe, actually the entire concept of mobility as a service came forth from Helsinki. It was actually designed by a female engineer, and they basically tried. So that was the first city in the world that experienced full-fledged mobility as a service, and they saw loads of people giving up their cars and buying a pass for a month. Like a subscription model, right? That takes care of all of my needs to get to wherever I need to get in the city, right? And that pass gives you a combination of public transport, car sharing, micro-mobility, bicycle sharing, all of those things into a single mobility pass that is customized for you.
Okay.
Right? So that was the gold standard for mobility as a service. And then we realized there were other cities that were also having similar, maybe not to that level, but similar degrees of frictionless travel.
Right.
But one thing was common was that was only found in first world, developed cities, right? The developing world didn't have any of that, right? In fact, the developing world struggled with almost level 0. How do I even find the bus, let alone pay for everything seamlessly, right? So we realized that therein lies the great opportunity, right? How do we enable mobility as a service? That experience, that is a first world experience in the developing world. Right, and so we realized we had to take a different, technology approach, a different business model approach to this. Right, all of the companies that were mobility as a service companies in the first world, cities were app companies. I just build an app, consume the data that's already there, which is provided by a government or some body that has been mandated to do that, and I just build a cool-looking app and sell passes. Right, that's a B2C, consumer play. We can't do that
in
here.
the developed world, it works.
Yes, in the developed world, that is the best way to do it. That is how you do it. But in the developing world where we are, the digital infrastructure does not exist to support that. Right, the transport operators are not ready to work with each other.
Right, mindset.
Yeah.
OMG.
Right.
Okay.
So we had to then go much deeper down the tech stack. Right, I can't just build an app. It's not an app company that will work here. Right, the app without data means nothing. Right. So I had to go and build core infrastructure and core systems to digitize transport in the first place. Right? How do we get all of these buses, all of these services online?
Right.
Once it gets online, then I've got access to the data. Then I can help each of them work with each other. So they're going to work with each other integrated, digitally rather than operationally. Okay. Right? And so that is why we had to then redefine what that mobility as a service solution is for the developing world. It's not just an app. You've got to build an app, yes, but behind the app, everything else. Journey planning algorithms, machine learning technologies in order to be able to launch new services like demand responsive transit, because there's a big first and last mile gap, right? So what if I can tell you that your bus is going to arrive at that stop at a certain time? How are you going to get to that stop? Right? We all don't live within walking distance to the stops, right? So then you got to fix the first and last mile gap as well, right? So how do you do that? Not by running new bus services, because that's not going to work. It's how can we launch new services using cutting edge technology that can solve that first and last mile gap, because it costs a lot to run fixed schedule, fixed timetable bus services, right? And that is why they are few and far in between. How do I have this in every neighborhood? There is like a shuttle service that takes you around the neighborhood. That's combining the best of e-hailing with public transport. That is, demand responsive transit. So that's why we built that, and being able to own the technology, because if we just simply license it from the first world, it's not going to be sustainable. We had to own the technology, build it here, right? And so we decided to invest in that over the years and build a really deep tech stack that could benefit transit operators, transport agencies. So it's a very much 90% B2B, 10% B2C.
Have you seen behavior change though? Like you talk about, you've got all this going on, the "where is my bus" thing, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen people like me say, I will now change a little bit of my behavior?
So we have seen that actually. Okay. So we have seen with the introduction of a demand responsive transit technology, DRT, that is constantly growing month on month ridership. In just a year of running it, we are now servicing almost 40,000 rides a month, right? And this with a fleet of just vans, no buses involved, right? A fleet of about 16 to 20 vans at any point of time on, running there. We are like a major public transport operator already, right? But we are hardly, that's a drop in the ocean, really, right? But you also see that in recent months, August onwards, right? Public transport ridership in Malaysia, in Klang Valley, has hit record highs. Right, August, September. Why? What is causing that? What is causing that? Right. So I do know that a couple of things are working towards that. Right. Us being the DRT, where we are actually 2/3 of our riders use that service to get to and from a public transit station. So that's obviously contributing towards ridership, right? It's a small contribution, but that small contribution has tipped over, right? So now you've got record highs, right? And if you remember 4 years ago when the pandemic hit, right? All this conversation about no one's going to leave their homes anymore and public transport is dead, right? That's not true. That's actually gone to the opposite, right? There is more people using public transport than ever before, even pre-COVID, right? And so we do see changes happening, but as you can see, right, the change is not uniform in that sense. Simply because transport is a hyper-localized thing, right? Depending on where you live and where you want to go, that rate of change will not be the same as the other person who lives somewhere else in the same city, right? Depending on access to infrastructure, services, and your needs, right? And so we are seeing a greater level of change among the younger population, among the students who don't own a car yet, right? So 2 of our highest ridership zones for our DRT service are in campuses, right? So they don't own cars, so it's actually easier for them to change rather than a person who's already committed to owning a vehicle, right? That still can change, but it requires a lot more effort, a lot more seamless integration for park and ride, for example. So those are all the areas that we are currently working on.
So I was just looking at it. You've got your campus, the community shuttle, your off-peak transit, and also I think you're also working paratransit as well, right? For the
So we definitely see the use case there, right? With demand responsive transit, vehicles can be designated. So in a fleet of vehicles, I could have 16 vehicles in a fleet. 1 or 2 vehicles can have wheelchair access, right? And let the system then prioritize the bookings for a person who needs that, right? That is how we do it, rather than let's have a fleet of wheelchair-friendly vehicles that half of the time is sitting idle, right? That's just a smart way to do it. So I think using a common platform like this, you can serve multiple use cases, right? So and that is where optimization comes in, and that is when cost comes down for each of the services, and then with that becomes a sustainable mode of transport.
And it's sustainable and inclusive in that process, right? How technology can use that as well, right? So your work has gone beyond Malaysia?
We are receiving interest a lot from outside of Malaysia right now. So as of 2025, we are venturing out of Malaysia. And so in the region, there's a lot of interest in the region for Southeast Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam. We are in talks with partners in the Middle East as well, and then the rest of and also in South America. So I will be there next month. And so we are absolutely on a pursuit.
It'd be so
growth.
Interesting, right? I was going to ask you, is there a common thread, and I guess across the region? I'm just thinking, and I'm sure each country will have its different challenges well. In the Middle East, where they are very committed, so the public transportation is not something they want to do because they're committed to the Lamborghini.
That's right.
Now you were the national nominee, right, for that category for culture culture and heritage, right? And I'm just thinking, like, I was looking through it as well, but how do you think this all fits into culture and heritage?
Yeah, WSA parked transport and mobility under culture and heritage, which initially I thought that was strange. Initially, I thought that was a mistake.
Okay. I was thinking,
yeah. So, but culture, the culture and heritage company. But then I realized that they were quite specific with what they meant by that, right? Multimodal transportation.
Right.
And that is, I think, it ties into, the need for people to move is actually very tied into the nature of society and who we are as a people. Right? We move for reasons that are determined by our society, our culture, our needs, our requirements. And so on a Friday afternoon, for example, in Malaysia, there is a need for loads of people to go to the mosque to pray.
Yeah.
Right? That's a culture heritage thing. But, so there is a great deal of that we often don't quite realize.
Yes.
Right? If we are a city whereby we love to go to the malls on the weekend, right? That's unfortunately our culture somehow.
Yes, because it's
right?
hot.
Yeah, right. So then malls become parking sites. Malls are huge parking sites, right? And these parking sites are designed for peak capacity, right? Weekends when it's full, and this is ample parking spaces on a weekday, for example, right?
Okay.
And therefore, malls should be park and ride sites, right? Malls should be big transport terminals themselves, which most malls, newer malls are, designed like that now, which is great, right? But that means we've got to then change the mindset of people that think of malls as park and ride sites, and not just malls, right? Park there, grab a coffee, and then ride to where your final destination is, right? And so that is defining culture of the people, right? That's defining that. And also in terms of heritage, the way I see it is that being able to really visit heritage sites, especially for our young kids, right? If they don't have access to museums, they don't have access to our, historical sites, the, appreciation of, heritage is gone, right? Being able to have that, proximity and access to these sites is actually hugely, critical. So I guess that is why they saw it in that way, that transport has a role to play in reinforcing culture and heritage of a people, right? And I've always said this, right? The need to move is not a luxury. The need to move is a necessity for life. And life meaning play, work, recreation, right? All of that as a whole, defines the culture of a people. How you play, where you work, the things that you choose to do, the things that is important to you, right? Becomes culture of the people.
Right. Okay, Ram, is there anything that I haven't asked that you'd like to bring up? And I guess what excites you for 2025, apart from South America?
What really excites me for 2025 is the fact that there is a great opportunity for us to solve long-standing problems with the stuff that we have already built, right? So one of the key things is, and this is what is upcoming in our pipeline for this year, is school transport.
Yes.
Right. So school transport fares are going up.
Yes.
Right. And it's highly unoptimized for the student, for the child.
Yeah.
Right. We have heard of 5-year-olds who go to international schools who have to wake up 2 hours, 3 hours earlier. Right, the poor kid is up at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Sleeps in the van.
Right, sleeps in the van because the van needs to do this.
Yeah.
Right, but the reason why that is because we don't have an aggregated platform for school transporters.
Right.
Right, so it's who you call. Can you do this pickup? He's going to say yes. I've got an empty seat.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm going to be the best transporter for you based on where you live and where your kids are going to school for. Right, the solution to that is digital platform to aggregate everybody. Right.
Where were you 10 years ago?
So we have done that for public transport. Now we can do that for school transport. And once we do that, can you imagine the quality of life for the family, for the poor kid, right? School is not an arduous journey that takes 4 hours, 5 hours every day to and from, right? School should be fun. School should not be a chore, right?
Yes.
But getting to school now is a major challenge for many families.
Wow.
And especially when one kid falls sick, what's going to happen? Or this kid needs to go for tuition, and parents are trying to work everything out, right? What if we've got a dedicated fleet for all of your kids' mobility needs. Not just school. He wants to go and play, football in the field. I don't have to think about, placing him in a Grab with an unknown stranger in there, right?
Yes.
Right. That's a game changer, right? For families and for kids. So we are passionate about those things,
right?
And we are actually working very hard on that right now.
I'm very excited about that. And of course, this is all real time for you, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at your kids like, I see this is a problem.
That's right.
So you're trying to solve this in all. Thanks for sharing. It's a very exciting journey it's been. And again, all the best for 2025 and
Thank you,
in South America.
Thank you.
You've been watching The Shift Asia.